Okay, so we left off. How much school did you have when Paul finished?
I think I had 11 hours. I'm not real certain, but I know I took summer school, and Jerry and I were living in a trailer house that belonged to a friend of ours. They were out of town or out of the country for the summer, and it was this trailer court was next door to the swimming pool. So Jerry and I would go over. I'd sit and study, and she'd stomp around and wade in the water and play and have a good time over there. Kept her entertained. And then I got within, I think maybe it was 4 hours that I had left when I finished summer school. And that, of course, required two correspondence courses because they offered them in three-hour courses only. So I had to take one that was in technical writing, and I don't remember what the other one was that I finally took. But things were offered at Dodge City Community College down there, so that kind of gave me an opportunity to get things finished up.
So you were able to get your degree when?
Well, my diploma's dated March 1959, but I was able to go down the hill with Paul, and I'm considered part of the class of 1957, which was his graduation year and would have been mine if I had gone straight through.
Right. And it was in math. You said math.
Ended up with a major in math. Mm-hmm.
And so who took care of Jerry when you were in school?
We had a babysitter on, I believe it was Illinois Street, and I don't remember how much the time she had to spend there. And I think we went most every day, but from anywhere from 1 to 3 hours in the afternoon, basically.
Okay. Let's see. And then, so you moved to Dodge City. Where had Paul started a new job there already?
Yes, he was working for the firm, a CPA firm of Hogue, Beebe and Trindle, and he had, with the CPA, they have to take, I think it's 4 parts of an exam and pass at least 2 to be conditional, and then they can take the other 2 as they come along. And he had gotten a conditional, and then he got it past his other parts while we were there.
So where was your first home in Dodge City?
We were in a walkout basement apartment across the street from the school. And our car drove in the driveway from the alley. And the backyard, of course, was well protected by the house, and it wasn't just an alley there.
And then, let's see, you guys had a house after that?
Well, we moved to a house out in the northwest part of town and then built a home. Must have been 62 we started building that house.
Okay. And was that when Joe was born, or was that before?
Let's see. Jean was born in 57, the first summer we were...
Okay.
No.
First summer
right?
you were in Dodge, 58, I thought.
Joe was born in 58. Jean was born in 50.
I was born in 55.
55.
Joe was born in 60.
That's right. Okay, Jean was born in 58.
So it would have been a year after you lived in Dodge.
Yeah, we'd been in Dodge City for a year.
Okay.
And then Joe was born on his birthday 2 years later.
Okay. And so do you remember where you lived when Joe was born?
We were in that walkout basement apartment for both of them.
Okay.
We didn't move out of that until we had 3 kids to worry about.
Okay. And how many bedrooms was it?
Well, it was just basically there were 2. There was one bedroom that had 2 beds in it, which the kids had, which was clear back in the far corner. And then there was one bedroom just kind of off of the dining room there that had one bed in it that we used.
Okay.
Got the kids back in the corner so they wouldn't be roused by all the noise and things.
Yeah.
But that had a funny consequence. One time, Jerry had gone outside to play with the next door neighbor, who was probably 3 or 4 years older than she was. And I went out to check, and Jerry wasn't there. And so I was hunting all over outside for Jerry. Where in the world had she gotten to? And there was a boy that lived up the street. His name was Bill Holman, and he was probably the same. He was probably three or 4 years older than Jerry was. And she would stand at the back of our yard and holler, "Bill, Bill!" And I thought, do you suppose she actually walked up there to check him out? No, she hadn't. I didn't quite know where to go or what to do until finally I walked in the house, walked clear back to the bedroom, and there she was asleep on the bed. She'd just gotten tired and gone to bed.
Did you take lots of vacations when your children were young?
We usually had one per year. Paul's schedule kept him pretty busy, and we didn't have a lot of time off. He didn't have a lot of time off. So we would come up to Colby for weekends. I don't know whether we did that once a month, or I suppose that was about the frequency we came up, and then go on a vacation. We went, the one I remember probably most clearly is going up to Yellowstone National Park. Stay on the constructed walks and hold hands. Don't fall in that hot water.
How old were your children at that time?
I don't know if Joe would have been 2. Do you remember, Jerry, how old you were?
I remember it vaguely.
So was it a long trip to drive to Colby?
Just about
Not
3
far, not far. I took, Paul finished up his work to get his pilot's license when we were in Dodge City. And so then I went ahead and took flight training and got my pilot's license. And so we had rented the plane one day and we're coming up to Colby. And we're going over about where the pyramids are down there. And all of a sudden the plane started to go thump, thump, thump. We thought, uh-oh, we started checking the gauges and the engine and what in the world is wrong with the airplane? And I happened to turn around and look back, and there were Jerry, Jean, and Joe with their arms linked going thump, thump, thump.
So it was the kids, not the air
Yeah, the kids were
turbulence.
making the plane rock, yeah.
What made you guys decide to get interested in flying?
Paul had been interested in flying when he lived in Hayes. I had always thought it would be fun, and my dad had gotten me a trip with a small plane pilot in a small plane, and I was thrilled with that and thought, okay, this is something I think I want to do.
And so when did you get your pilot's license? Do you remember?
Oh, I was probably 25 or so. It was not long. It was probably within a year and a half after we were in Dodge City. So maybe I wasn't even 24 yet.
Okay. Did you guys have a plane right away, or did you rent? You said you rented
We just
one.
rented a plane. They were easy to rent down there, so we didn't worry about trying to buy one. Besides that, they were expensive, and you'd have to have a place to park it, and you'd have to take care of it. When it's a rental plane, you can go out, and if you want to take a friend for a ride over the countryside, you can rent it, have it for only half an hour or so, and it wasn't terribly expensive.
Were you involved with any clubs or civic things in Dodge City?
The college director put on Brigadoon, and I played oboe in the orchestra with that. Didn't try to sing in any choirs or do anything like that. Learned to play bridge. Probably most activity was with the church, because I ended up being president of UMW while I was down there, or the WSCS it was at that time. It's the same as UMW now. And I don't think of any other things. Paul worked with the Boot Hill Committee, which was the Junior Chamber of Commerce, which were putting together the displays and the museum type things that were at Boot Hill. And I guess I was with Sweet Adeline's down there too.
I was
wasn't
thinking I remembered Sweet Adeline's show that I was a prop in.
And the Sweet Adelines would sing at the barbershop shows, sing in the shows at the Boot Hill
Oh.
show night, and we would always be the mail order brides who were heading out to wherever we were supposed to be going.
I think you told me a story one time about using like recycled wood to build your house in Dodge City.
While we were there, there was a circus that performed in the community building on the gym floor, and they had a tank that leaked and ruined the maple flooring. And so when they replaced it, they had to replace the whole thing. Well, we jumped in and salvaged that maple flooring and used that in the house as when we built it. We had to get out all the nails and scrape the glue out of the tongue and groove and then put it down for new, and then get it all sanded off and finished.
Where did you find some of these materials? How did you find out about them?
Well, that one, it was kind of everybody in the community knew they had to replace the flooring, and the builder we were working with said, you could make good floor out of that. That'd be just what you need. So that's what we did.
We also used wood from your dad's storage that he.
There was used to be a long shed that we stored grain in out at the farm, and when that was no longer convenient to store in because it was so hard to get the grain in and out. And so they began tearing that thing down, and it had extremely hard pine timbers. And we hauled those down, and we used those for the timbers in the house, the roofing timbers, because it was exposed roofing.
What kinds of activities did your children like to do? They play games?
We would go to the park. When Paul was working out of town, we'd go someplace and get a hamburger and go to the park, and they would swing and whatever. And then they had several friends in the neighborhood. Who's the family just north, just east of us?
The Casterline.
Casterline friends, and
And the Beamises.
yes, and we rode bicycle with the Beamises a lot. They had two girls, Wendy and Tammy. And
And there was a family that lived out west of town on the highway.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a Kelly with the somebody and a Kelly with the glasses. I remember there were two
there were
Kellys.
two Kellys, and one of them, well, in fact, both of their dads worked with in the same firm as Paul did. Kelly Anderson and Kelly.
Was it a Myers? Was there a Myers family?
Oh, I don't remember Myers family.
Okay.
Lots of kids in the neighborhood.
Well, there were
Some of them,
available,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, not necessarily in the neighborhood.
Then
but
Jerry started school at Northwest there, and
that's where I went to first grade.
yeah.
Becky wanted to know if you had a philosophy about raising children going into parenting. And how you might have changed that as your kids got older and you got smarter. And
Ken was 11 years younger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce was 17 years younger. Ken was the youngest of three that were on the farm as
Right.
I was growing up. So there was Beverly Barrett, Sheila Fight, whose mother was a cook and whose dad was kind of the foreman at the farm, and Ken, within a year of each other. And I was kind of I was babysitting or looking after kids from early on. And then Bruce came along, and I was kind of in charge of him because Mother at that time was dealing with gallbladder. So she had gallbladder surgery, and I was looking after Bruce during that time. And so I don't know that I ever thought about philosophy of raising kids. I just did it.
Was there any recipes that they liked the best that you made a lot, or?
Favorite foods.
Terrible drink.
Yeah.
That was Dad's business, wasn't it? Mixing terrible drink.
Whomping up a chocolate malt.
Everest. Yeah, I need to know where you are.
Cocoa bars, I remember cocoa bars.
Oh, yes, there was a recipe for cocoa bars. And we had a recipe for homemade Play-Doh that doesn't fall in the food category, but it
Right.
Was
That's
something
we
we
like
would
to play with.
mix up
Well,
and
how'd you
make
make
play-
your homemade Play-Doh?
lots of salt and cornstarch and
Cooked flour.
Okay, you'll be at
flour, yeah, to thicken it.
And you cooked it?
Yeah.
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 And did you add like food coloring or?
Yeah, you could add food coloring, do whatever you wanted to
Yeah, okay.
with it. Jean loved things that spun around,
Sure.
Records.
records.
And then did you guys have a garden in Dodge City? Did you?
We were busy getting the lawn and the trees in at the house, and by then I was dealing with sun problems. I couldn't get in the sun much because of it turned out to be what's called discoid lupus, but stay out of the sun. So, and they didn't have good sunscreens then. Sunscreen was, take your pick, white zinc oxide or red zinc oxide. Smeared all over your face and your nose and your
How did you first find out that you had lupus?
the summer we were in Dodge City, I was getting a rash on my chest, and I thought maybe it was suntan lotion. Well, by the time it didn't develop far enough while we were there for me to do anything about it. And so by the time we came back, and then Jean was born, and I didn't get out in the sun very much that next summer. And then, so it was a summer or two down the line. And it happened that there was an allergy specialist who lived in Dodge City for the climate. He couldn't take he had enough asthma problems that he couldn't take the more humid climates. And so my doctor then referred me to him. And the minute I walked in the room, he said, "Oh, you have trouble with the sun." And so he immediately gave me some of the tools I needed to deal with that.
So you went from having to travel to Denver for an eye doctor to having an allergy specialist right there in Dodge City.
Right. We got our eye doctor in Colby. As soon as the war was over,
Of
we had an
course.
eye doctor that
Yeah.
came and settled in Colby.
So that's a big change.
Right,
It's
right.
just societal change in like the health
Yeah.
field and the
Availability of things.
right. Were there other changes that you saw like that?
Well, when they built the hospital, and they were called the Sisters of St. Agnes. They were from Wisconsin. It came down to run the hospital, and
In Dodge City or in Colby?
in Colby.
Okay.
This was right after the war, and
Here we are.
my granddad was the first patient there. In fact, the hospital really wasn't quite finished.
Grandpa Schnellbacher?
Yes, when he went in there.
And that was for his back.
Kind of a combination of things. He had an alcohol problem, which was was the reason why he had the accident, and he dealt with it pretty well, but he would have relapses once in a while, and I can't tell you whether he was kind of on a relapse from that and deterioration of the back and other things, but he was not doing well. And he would go to Denver. My dad would take him out to Denver once in a while to a clinic out there.
So you found out you had lupus. How old were you when you found out?
Well, it was in 1958, so I must have been 23 years old when it was diagnosed.
Okay.
I had, when I think back about it, I'd had a bad sunburn, some scarring on my back when we visited Paul's sister down in Texas, and were on the beach all day for a day or two. And of course, that healed up and was gone and forgotten pretty much. And then the swimming pool summer in Lawrence, and then a couple years later when I...
Did you have other symptoms at all, or was it?
No, mine was strictly skin involvement, and sun sensitivity was all I had to worry about. There were a couple of medicines that they gave related to quinine that helped a lot, but then they had to watch very carefully to make sure I didn't have vision problems in the retina from that medicine. So
Did you take something regularly?
I did at that time,
Yeah.
but as time went on, the symptoms seemed to lessen, and I didn't have to worry about it as much.
So you moved to, when did you move to Colby?
64.
Okay, and what was the reason behind?
Paul was working out of town an awful lot when we lived in Dodge City because he'd do audits and things out of town. And he had enough business, there was enough clients in Colby that he said, let me move to Colby and take care of the Colby clients. And then when I need to go out of town and take a crew, I'll do it from Colby. And so he stayed as a partner of the firm and moved to Colby and worked on the Colby clients. And then when he'd call for help to work on something, they wouldn't be available from the Dodge City office. So pretty soon he decided, I'm just going to buy out the business and take care of it here and let them take care of their own down there.
And so was it in 64 when you moved to Villa Vista?
Yes, we moved right into, that was the first place we lived in Colby.
Okay. And was it, I remember hearing stories about how you guys worked on the house quite a bit, that it was a farmhouse or something like that.
It had been moved in from the country.
Okay.
And when it was in the country, it was just one level, no basement. And there had been a recreation room in half of what was the garage here in town. When they moved it to town, they put it over a basement and took that recreation room and made a large garage, added that onto the garage space. And I don't know that we did a whole lot to it for a few years until we redid the opening between the kitchen and the
Oh, your knee was showing up.
You were blocking your face.
between the kitchen and between the living room and the dining room and the entry, and then somewhat between the kitchen.
Okay.
So we opened that out.